urging an Accra High Court to dismiss a case filed by the suspended Chief Justice Gertrude Torkonuu. Now, documents filed in court by the Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Justice Shemsai, argues that the matters raised by the Chief Justice have been dealt with or remain pending at the Supreme Court. The Chief Justice has, in the last few weeks, urged the Supreme Court and now the High Court to halt her removal process. Now, this action by the Chief Justice is a sixth legal action filed in court since the presidency announced the receipt of petitions against the Chief Justice. My colleague Joseph Akablain is joining me in the studio. It's a legal affairs correspondent to get details of exactly what the Deputy Attorney General filed in court today. What do we know, Joseph?
So we know that the Chief Justice filed this action after her initial push at the Supreme Court did not succeed. You recall that was the very first time the Chief Justice had herself taken a matter over to the Supreme Court. She filed an affidavit in which she made series of allegations, and when it went over to the Supreme Court took the view that those affidavits disclosed matters that fell within the proceedings that took place at the committee, and so the court struck out those affidavits. Her request for the proceedings to be put on hold was also not upheld by the court. Now, and after all of that, she now filed a process at the High Court. In fact, the very first time we heard of this process that has been filed at the High Court was disclosed by the Chief Justice herself. In that press conference that she addressed, she did indicate that she had instructed her lawyers to file a judicial review action challenging some of the matters that have taken place at the committee hearing. In effect, what she's seeking is for those proceedings to be put on hold. Key amongst the concerns has to do with the fact that she says up until now she has not received a ruling or a determination, the prima facie determination. She's yet to receive it, so she does not know which aspects of the petitions filed against her have crossed the prima facie threshold and which of the allegations have not. And so she's basically showed up at the committee, and all she's responding to are the matters that were given to her, for which she provided response to at the initial level, even before the committee was set up. So she doesn't even know whether her copies that she has is the same thing that the Chief Justice the committee also has in its possession. And those are all matters that she has put in the document that she has taken over to the High Court. Now, the Deputy Attorney General has responded on behalf of the Republican. Right. Makes the point strongly that those matters that are being raised by the Chief Justice are matters that have been dealt with by the Supreme Court or they remain pending at the Supreme Court. In fact, they list the 5 other cases that have been filed at the Supreme Court so far. I'm going to run you through the case titles so far. So the first one is the case that was filed by the Chief Justice herself, not the first in time, but in terms of the list as put out in the court documents by the Attorney General, her ladyship, Justice Gertrude Araba Isaba Torkonuu versus the Attorney General and 5 others. The suit number is provided there. Then Center for Citizenship, Constitutional Electoral Systems, LBG versus Attorney General and 2 others. Then there is Vincent Ekoasefua versus Attorney General, Ebenezer Osei Owusu versus Attorney General, and Theodore Kofi Atta Korte versus Attorney General. So those are the 5 cases that the AG makes reference to make the point that these are cases in which the same matters have been urged on the court. And the court has either dealt with it or the matter remains pending at the Supreme Court. And so you cannot come back to the High Court or come down to the High Court, the lower court, and ask the High Court to pronounce on those same matters, especially when they've either been dealt with or they remain pending. And so they are basically asking the High Court to strike out the judicial review action that has been filed by the Chief Justice.
Essentially, what then this? How is it going to impact on the proceedings, especially at the Supreme Court? Because you indicate that the Deputy Attorney General, in filing today, indicates that there are some of the issues that are pending at the Supreme Court already. Does this development have any consequence whatsoever on the process at the Supreme Court as filed already?
In fact, what we do not know is whether the request that was made to the High Court by the Chief Justice, whether it includes an application for injunction or not. We also know that the Supreme Court in that recent decision dealt with the issues of whether an application ought to stop a constitutional body from performing its function. We know that in one of the concurring opinion, Justice Emmanuel Yonikulendi makes the point quite strongly that as far as he's concerned, he thinks that the distinction needs to be made when it comes to constitutional functions. Such an application should not stop the committee from hearing it. What we can say for a fact is that This particular application has been filed by the Attorney General. It's slated for hearing on Tuesday, the 15th of July, 2025. The request to the High Court to strike out the application that has been filed by the Chief Justice. So we'd have to look up onto that day to know what will transpire in court in terms of the concerns that may be raised by the Attorney General or lawyers for the Chief Justice.
Now, stay with me, Joseph. Let's bring in Lawrence Bwampong, who is a private legal practitioner as well. Counsel, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Mr. Counsel.
Now,
thanks for the pleasure.
Perfect. Now, you heard my colleague and also a senior legal affairs correspondent, Joseph Akabale, lay the basis for the Chief Justice's this application at the High Court. The Deputy Attorney General is making the point that the matters raised by the CJ, the suspended Chief Justice, have already been dealt with or remain pending at the Supreme Court. I mean, does this position have any merit as against what the CJ is asking for right now?
Yes, Mr. Counsel. Thank you for the opportunity once again. And let me say good evening to your cherished listeners. Yes, I've looked at the affidavit in support of the application that has been filed by the Deputy AG. And he makes the case that the matters pending before the Supreme Court has a bearing on the application for judicial review by her ladyship, the Chief Justice. Yes, because the matter is pending, I wouldn't want to go into the merit, but let me just say that the matter before the High Court is for judicial review. And when we talk about judicial review, simply put, it means that when you look at our Constitution, Article 141, the High Court has what we call supervisory jurisdiction over all lower courts and lower adjudicating bodies. So the committee for this matter involving her ladyship is exercising a judicial function, quasi-judicial. Therefore, the High Court has that supervisory jurisdiction over that committee. And I have not seen the application which has been filed by the suspended Chief Justice. However, my understanding is that she is before the High Court because it is the proper forum when you want to go for any relief in the nature of judicial review. That is for sexual right. If you want to quash the process or the proceedings before the committee. We all heard her speak to the nation and she complained about certain acts, such as, a breach of her natural justice, fair hearing and all that, human rights matters. So it is a proper forum. As to whether the issues in her affidavit in support for a relief in judicial review has a bearing with the matters before the Supreme Court, is for the High Court to determine. Though, let me be quick to state that we all know, and this is known by everybody who has been following these matters, that some of the things that she complained about in the Supreme Court, in her own case, the one that she was the applicant, she made mention of some of these issues. It is also a fact that some of the things that she said in her supplementary affidavit were struck out by the Supreme Court. So those are not matters which are still pending before the Supreme Court, because that matter has been dealt with. There's a ruling on it. So that is what I can say.
She's always contended, and this was even at the press conference last week, that she doesn't have a copy of the prima facie against her, and she doesn't even know whether the copies of the petitions that she has is the same that the committee that she has appeared before them really has, and being employed in the process of the hearing against her. Now, is it a legitimate suspicion to have that the details of the petition she has will be different from what the committee is having? Does it have any basis whatsoever?
Yes, Mr. Kennedy. Sometimes it's difficult to answer some of these questions because, the committee has no spokesperson to, respond to this matter. However, what we all do know is that the Chief Justice herself admits that she wrote a letter to His Excellency the President requesting for copies of the petitions against her. So I find it difficult to understand if she's complaining that she doesn't have those petitions. It's quite difficult for me to understand that. Further, during her press conference, she told the whole nation the content of the petition. So she has always had the petitions. So for me, respectfully, I do not believe that the petition is the issue. All three petitions, she told us the content, which suggests that she has in her custody copies of the petition. So it is difficult for me to see that as an issue. I understand her complaining that when she appeared before the committee, they have not given her copies. But we don't know she already has copies. So that for me is a bit difficult for me to comprehend.
But how do you see things playing out? I mean, the Deputy Attorney General filed on behalf of the state asking that the High Court strikes out this particular case. Is it one that you see playing out this way, or as it were, the court will now have to determine whether the details or the reliefs that she's seeking in this supplementary affidavit has any impact on what she's seeking at the Supreme Court, essentially?
Okay, so this is how I see the High Court going about it. You know, she has brought an application in the nature of judicial review, and that application will be supported by an affidavit. In the affidavit, she would depose to the things that, in her view, okay, she sees as breaches, whether of natural justice or whatever. Then the court is going to have the opportunity to also listen to the Attorney General. Don't forget, what the AG has filed now is not in response to her application. It is another application to set aside, you get it, to strike out her application for judicial review. So the Attorney General will have an affidavit in opposition to counter the argument that has been canvassed by her ladyship. And the court will be called upon to weigh the two, to look at her depositions and marry that with that of the AG. Where there are merits in it, that will form the basis of granting the application or refusing it. I hope you get it.
I get the point. I think it's pretty, yes.
This is a separate motion which has been filed by the AG, okay? And he's also saying that he wants to strike out what has already been filed by the CJ based on certain reasons which he has deposed to them in the affidavit. So the court is going to look at it. So the two applications will come on that day. And by practice, because this current one, that the motion we are discussing, the motion on notice for an order to strike out the application for judicial review was recently filed, that will be taken before the application for judicial review.
It's going to be a day to watch. I mean, this case is expected to be heard on the 15th. Of this month, so I'm sure how the coming days will look like. We'll certainly connect with you again, Counsel, and I do appreciate your thoughts and analysis on this particular issue. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Perfect. That's private legal practitioner Lawrence Boampong Reko joining us with his thoughts on the Chief Justice, the suspended Chief Justice. Now, what we're learning is that the Attorney General is urging an Accra High Court to dismiss a case filed by Her Ladyship Gertrude Torkonuu. Documents filed in court by the Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Justice Semsai, argues that the matters raised by the Chief Justice have been dealt with or remain pending at the Supreme Court. Now, this also comes on the back of what a political party is asking of Otumfuose to the second. What do we know?
Well, they are petitioning the Asante, and these people are the People's National Party, over what it describes as unlawful suspension and human rights abuses against the Chief Justice Gertrude Isaba Torkonuu. And we'll be getting across to our correspondent to get more details on this very soon. Alfred?
Indeed. But then again, before we connect, this is what Janet Nabila, who is the leader of this group, this political party, has been talking about with regards to this petition to Otumfuose to the second.
Political parties are supposed to run a country. And to run a country, whatever is happening to the Chief Justice is not part of running the country. We have seen that as an abuse, not only on the Chief Justice, but the women of Ghana. We see what the NDC, John Mahama administration, whatever they are doing to the woman as an abuse of power. And we think that since all protocols are no longer working, our justice system has become an annex of political parties. We decided that we will come to Mensia Palace because we know that our tradition has already shown us. They were there before this democracy we inherited came along. So if our democracy is not working, we will go back to our roots and ask the chiefs, who are the custodians of the land, to tell the Mahama government, who is just renting part of the land to operate, to call him to order. So today we are here we've presented our petition. We've cried about whatever violations are emitting out to the Chief Justice. We've outlined them in the petition, and we have given it to Otumfuose's secretary, custodians of the land, to tell the Mahama government, who is just renting part of the land to operate, to call him to order. So today we are here we've presented our petition. We've cried about whatever violations are emitting out to the Chief Justice. We've outlined them in the petition, and we have given it to Otumfuose's secretary.
As Janet Nabila there.
One issue, a major topical issue, almost all the tabloid na ago fancy. They had a tabloid in the house, and that's right. Social media portals, the traditional media, na ago fancy on it has to do with the press conference. The CJ, former CJ, or call it the suspended CJ.
That's right.
Yeah. And the Neamana or no, maybe the motivation on her part, say she could convince Ghanaians to come to her side to believe, say, the processes that has been activated are a lead to the removal a political witch hunt.
That's right.
And for that matter, the people of Ghana should come to her aid. Now, turning against the government of the day. Now, why initiated the process, and in doing so, a man that kind of, if I say, moral boost to be a Ghana for a to or mono a see a buying so. No matter say, oh, dear, a witch hunt and then as a form. But that agenda, it seems it didn't fly. I'm fat.
Really?
And a blow on her face. Yes, Alaska, you can do a case research on the various media platforms.
Very well.
Look at the feedback from people from all levels. You could see clearly, so what she did yesterday, was rather a woman was subjecting herself for public mockery,
public ridicule.
Yes, because you see, this my culture said this is supposed to be a mature woman, not just a mature woman. Because her age when you've been with the judiciary for quite a long while. There has been a number of high-profile decisions where you involve what give her ankoya mobi. There has been a number of decisions that what deity a man farmer a bikura namswako obi akono meduru obi papa. That's a high-profile case. What di ama man for hwachiromo. None of these individuals and I can deem your ruling injustice. Press conference because Chief Makokota may dear Samatia Mintino may press conference against the Chief Justice or the judiciary. What to be that? And for Chief Justice, onim sa nema way na onim say a particular constitutional process has been activated against her, and the process is in motion. Alaska, for her to do what she did, I felt so ashamed. I'm so embarrassed. Say, why was such a grown woman with all the experiences, will betray her innate wisdom and adopt baby's wisdom? Oh yes,
Ivan.
Alaska. She betrayed her innate wisdom as a judge and adopted baby's wisdom.
Or the impaninyans are not to Afankwaladi.
That is exactly what she said, and I'll prove it right to you. Alaska, so her name na yeah na. Me nim de na opese o achieve. Said must account or maybe to smear the president because and yes sir, there is no sense in it. And Alaska, I have listened to a lot of people doing commentary, but there are crucial aspects people are not touching. The woman, Madam Torkonuu, suspended Chief Justice, or sealing the fate. No, Abra, press conference.
Oh,
she's done. She has demonstrated clearly, sir, she's not fit in terms of character-wise. Or no beer, or what the moral, your friend is saying, integrity, the honesty on her part, or you're devoid of all these basic characteristics here to Emma fit to be Chief Justice, or demonstrated clearly says she lacks all these things. Then now we'll be saying crime ban or fast or obey Chief Justice. Do we have a criteria be at her?
That's right.
Yamanipa proven woman for a judge to be a bit away a judge. A judge there may be knowledge into the law and a bit of credibility. But Alaska, we are talking about the administrative head of Ghana's judiciary. You need to provide extra layer of integrity and hope in terms of character. We are very rich. I'm for me to rely on you. One, Alaska, so call your constitution. I don't know if you have that. You can read clearly. Say, constitution is say you send a petition the comma president. Petition cannot be made public. You can argue say because technology advances, people are doing their research and as well. Bits and pieces of it can fly in the media, but there is nobody who can say something about it. So the actors in question, you are banned by the constitution not to disclose any bit of the content of the way in public. The president hasn't done so, and the Chief Justice isn't supposed to do so. I.e. the other lawyers involved. But Alaska, the administrative head of Ghana's judiciary, the Chief Justice, Atam petition, constitutional says should be heard in camera. Being heard in camera, no, it's not about the actors involved.
That's right.
The essence or the spirit behind it, you see, this is a sensitive, high-profile issues. Are very often, the disclosure in the public, can impugn the integrity of the judiciary.
Good.
So very often, the constitutional framers, in their wisdom thought, say, situation like this, we need to do it in camera. I have listened to a lot of people making some arguments. It is fair, say, but this is not the time to be making such argument. Because don't forget, a Chief Justice for how many years?
From 2023.
And reasonable, you could have envisaged the possibility of such situation popping up. So, as one of the remedies, now bet me suggesting, say, maybe I am a Chief Justice, must scan it through the constitution. Who say this is problematic. So, my tenure as a Chief Justice, I'm going to collaborate with the president just to ensure that we review this particular thing. You are an irresponsible leader, and that is what she demonstrated. Alaska, the constitution said this disclosure should not be made. Tam petition the Kojina, your friend is saying press conference and no read media content in the media. I know the day, Sadia na unconstitutional.
Okay.
And I said, your friend is a committee, your president that so. Move your mojuma. No, must say Chief Justice Edibim, and the president and friend back. No man a juma. Anybody can petition the president on this particular disclosure where in the press conference just to make sure say we dismiss her because the Chief Justice are breaching a constitutional provision. I had that article now. Actually, say you are not supposed to go public with this, and you see. Sadia way, I can sit here and comfortably tell you, say, leakage na enam space ma, say petition no, alikino based on what the woman did no you bet me jina so aka say onim hu bi na petition no babonten because all that she has been doing is she want to push the entire petition to the public space say ya Ghana for be hu bi.
That's right.
Or the court ama Supreme Court bo assembly to ye say enya wunti na constitution say yenye ade na public but it is in the interest of the ordinary Ghanaian no wa bonten no. Then how they perceive the judiciary. It is not about you as a chief justice.
That's right.
So your wishes cannot override
the constitution.
The constitution and what it guarantees for the ordinary and the average Ghanaian. And yes, you might deem it unfair. Say, I want it to go public, but there is an explicit constitutional provision on it. Me say you don't need any implicit interpretation to understand that provision. It is quite clear. So the processes must be heard in camera. So Alaska, say Chief Justice for petition, you know. Na all the Bejina public no ready chira wabumra no mumra.
Wabumra so.
Enye nyina so se be tuna free ho.
That's right.
Good. Petition na ekoso no. Obi betimi atro petition book we ma like newspaper way. Petition kwa. Do you know the propensity abetimi Chief Justice akọ abonten. So obi raise 2,000 charges against Chief Justice ye nyina dia. Se ba ko pe yetimi prove a obekofie.
You prove back.
Yes,
that's right.
Say obi ka say mature petition that come president say only Chief Justice in free ho. Now what 2,000 allegations. If we are able to prove just one, enough for you to go home. And it's a what in the petition now. Or no comfortable zone. We have no petition or the abano discuss it. No, but you need to discuss the entirety.
Because once I was
exactly because we don't need one or two. Just we don't need all the petition to be proven right. Just one pet will be enough to send you packing. Alaska again. Chief Justice say your friend is saying Kwanya President from Mahama Faso was signed a warrant of dismissal on Tiasie. Now President Mahama Abu Muraso Emrana Dahoya say Yafaso no Yamfaso. Now in the process leading to the establishment of the Premier Fasie, establishing merit and credence, the President Abu Muraso. And now media for Persia, you look them in the face and tell them, say, this is an express constitutional provision by which you think that the actions of the President and the Chief Justice and I infringe. The woman as a Chief Justice could not even mention a single infraction.
Even the article, our constitution,
yes,
right.
So she was advertising sheer emotions. Makacha said, this is a woman you could see, say, she appeared a bit broken, emotionally fragile. And our adopted baby's wisdom and original man for him and our advertising raw emotions and how lack of character. And then how on deep candor ewonimu said the city here chira man for. Because some now can was subjected to critical scrutiny. You could see clearly say Sabi, when you dear or your judge dear, but a dear funny reasoning, logic, common sense, ninyansa, any some no can. Because you see, so we a judge now do a certain level, Alaska. You cannot be dabbling in conspiracy theories. And I will say, and as someone say, you are a lawyer, you speak law, you speak to fact. Yes, substantial, you put you can prove.
That's right.
But if a Chief Justice can be dabbling in conspiracy theories in the way I say, and I suspect saying a way, then what will be the ordinary person? The ordinary person better. What are some making? So we a Chief Justice, you don't dabble in conspiracy theory because the President says, and I wake up see a baby. You see issues now, bano. You want, and these are the legitimate constitutional issues. I can't want them. And I'll say, petitioners, mother by, you say, friend, Kojo shining star. Now, call Registrar General Crown. You register Alaska. Let me say it quite clear, or a Chief Justice, but maybe on reading Constitution and tell here. Alaska, offer your Constitution, you know, provision I cast President ever remove Chief Justice. It is written nowhere. Say Obi is a group petition come President. It should be a registered group.
And I say you call Registrar General.
Again. There is nowhere I can say Obi Trump petition come President. I say if you would deem crown or the can all that the Constitution mentioned is receiving a petition. But my catch say yeah nipa per the details of principles of natural justice, the you accuse you must know your accuser.
Okay.
That is why you're making it say, okay, so we do petition, but we need to identify the person. Now you who say nipa na mpa nipa our petition free no whereby na assembly drua yetime bisano. But constitutionally, no, I want anybody to come and challenge this. There is nowhere I can say you must name yourself. But in implementing it, no, and putting human face on it, no. Yentimi nkasa Alaska obi the petition bra Ato Forson yampamo na yenhu nipa kro. Enya fair to you, meboa. You need to know who accused you.
That's
right. It's the reason why yakase the person must be known. Now, Cecilia, your friend say, Charlotte say, petition no more the pamo no. Besin ne, people didn't know the petition.
I was the faceless petition.
Besin ne, what I said. So that is why you should know say point Nana Maminu making was irrelevant and her as a chief justice, should have known better. Again, I say, you didn't call Edu's Lodge. Now you acquire Sachini baby next time. Omunya kwa even the panties crom on Sachim. Because Alaska, she has demonstrated bad faith. Because issues now, you see, is not supposed to be public. Already, you've gone to court seeking injunction, say, and you may no TV. So the probability, say, you smuggle in gadget to go and record whatever happened there to come and play. For whatever is high.
Right.
So, Obi Sachewa, you cannot fault that person who is searching you.
Wow.
What does Samna make?
That's right.
Because this is a woman fighting the court to say
Emra TV
so and a court to about Wagu. So what is the assurance say ye jaiwa umfa phone in as a phone call record the proceeding for Mabonting? Because and you have demonstrated that by doing a press conference talking about the petition. Until Obi Sachi wa airborne.
And are they restricting this?
Exactly.
Wow.
Again, I say Edu's Lodge I bring bad memories. Nana wafa deben that is absolute nonsense. That is rubbish.
Oh how?
Alaska. We are talking about somebody who will be accused you. Yes, a committee investigating. You don't determine where you sit. Who cares about your uncle memory? Now wouldn't my mom for uncle memory hand yomo? The very people caught to jail you or good prison. For do you know how people are being handled there? Alaska, who cares about your emotional feelings? 2.3 about so she deliberately caved in the killing of the judges and link it to the present NDC government just to make people know say judges some time ago so that was the impact of the message a coded word and all the share.
Wow.
Who cares about your feeling? It is not about your feeling. I expect that the Chief Justice will contest key issues, non-discussing the merit. Yababa Alaska Afriyie say, why ya my ne Ninuyanom judge for no Mote Supreme Court Akumiano sono Obu Bonimtia making look like say they are just some Niamafumbi, especially right. Justice Ponamai. Justice Ponamai was at the Supreme Court before this lady came in. Or you senior. Bibi na ye bibi ntia and abasene no ho ebe ye your friend say Chief Justice. Bafo Boni has been at the Yeve for very long time. Over to omunyina. Ba oba he no you were treating them like rags because so he na no a ode ye we no omunipa.
Oh sir.
Oh yes.
Na no keke.
Oh na hu enra no say wadwo. Hu ni poster ne poster utimi say boga ye mere. Because this is a typical arrogant woman who doesn't give a damn about anybody. She thinks that she's sitting on the moon or the sky. Obia should bow down. Who kind of us will address it Justice Ponamai and other people?
That's right.
And the argument in say Justice Ponamai and no kwatena case involve Daniel Ofori. Now really no more no. Justice Ponamai wrote to a right dissenting view. The honorable ruling in favor of Daniel Ofori. In the case, Yabasin Ko, Enti and Nano, and I'm said Justice Ponamai are ruling for Justice Ofori Paintino to her no on your fit to sit as a chair of the committee. That is absolutely nonsense. Because Alaska, this is a Chief Justice and an administrative head. You should be able to vouch for the integrity of your core people. So are they telling us that Obi a judge, dear Alaska and you will create a fraternal alliance with you to the sense that case be a media amount. Is that a kind of judiciary she was supervising. Say obidia some obia, then you build a family or some kind of a fraternal alliance with the person. Say subsequent issue be and you will be biased. So if the Chief Justice, man, say and run no expose soon actually Ghana for say on your fit for purpose. Because Alaska, if the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana cannot guarantee the integrity and the honesty and the fidelity of her own colleagues, our no more panel no so. Do you expect here to trust any judge?
Baby,
Chief Justice or no say omobeye bias etiano. And she is scared of her own colleagues. And the obi ono tia kurasi ananse ohini bia ote ebia nungwa bi ode na sa say sem Eko Supreme Court no. You want that ohene no to have faith in the judiciary when Chief Justice Lankasa no doesn't have faith. Does it make sense?
If you are what you can nipa no mundi.
Alaska, my mensan kan say bi afa osan soro ya o say your friend is saying yes what to kwan na o to kwan no. Yes, or the Nikunu ne man na constitution na create allowance say o tu kwanya or say or the security echo na security no wasn't mentioned they here security nature say o do be beka no ho na o de na call Alaska I can't just say we Chief Justice o ne wo ho.
That's right.
When you are traveling out there 2.3 in a private capacity in a bra we year adwuma state you know because don't forget Ghana so no yanso your friend is saying security people are omo year adwuma outside oh so even in the shadow just like the CIA have spies everywhere in Ghana you see obi so you can be a Chief Justice you be working London nipa no mo nam ho mo kono be akwa no security di wachi we have these things in place but when you are going for your private things they say go with the security because we don't stop here to be a Chief Justice. We are Ghana for Chief Justice in as much as we call private way, no.
That's right.
Even though it is private, be towa. I can't Ghana for because obibetimia akwache would wakwache baby, and they will force you to divulge details, secret be any say babonten. I don't know you hurt the country. It's the reason why they said who to crime even in your private capacity for security can now when you can say security Kwaku Annan be to be hwe but symbolically no represent bibi now obadi betimi bibi enti go with somebody on two separate occasions who could try plane ticket ma wo yere oba on another occasion who could try plane ticket ma ukunu etia pedium ne na sefo de ma omo enya jo mahama na ko chro to ho se ye sa ade no aye bone enti obi metro petition the audit service of this country audited you and they wrote a report on it and they flagged that thing so who will be blamed now go and blame the judicial service and yet John Mahama na kasa why about it the audit report is available they wrote and concluded say Saturday na Chief Justice you know and the money must be retrieved one kasa bedi one dance say Sikano Yamabi could you sign the baby.
I can't say,
and I sit down with your conscience and how this can be baba. So Obika say young trop petition Nemrawa, Oboni or my anything. And again, Alaska, a year Supreme Court and Chief Justice is supervising over no. Okay, Justice Gao is a wine. Yes, I'm a cofana by I was it a go. Madam Medina in money. Go, your friend your friend saying. Sorry, I know your friend's a lawyer for the Speaker of Parliament raise a papa will minimum no. On I know yet parliamentary candidate for MPP or whole central. So a banner saying such a high profile issue a political tentacles no our political way no would not better so Chief Justice some financial so on and yet politics no more no constitution.
That's right.
So maybe say say committee no matia or more investigative Chief Justice no a political issue.
No, now
your Mahama papa tisubi. Nema metisubi. And I say don't get theater so. Chama say chama for example for Kahobi.
That's right.
So what makes it political? Nipa no mugusu no obi wa political identity. Domlivo a politician. So they are man political way. O young judges too so. So I'm saying that the woman should just shut up and face the process. Either you quit because process is no coso. Unyam free mo. So what is the point coming to the public to talk about the things that she said? And again, I'll say, in some me really feel kaime. I say a man for sending no your friend is saying threat messages and I say on resigning position no is untenable na se for Alaska what has to see obi send o message say radio ya what is from Monday going obetena so a ombeku ade na wo ye
you must go to the police.
So you as an ordinary person say you threaten wa okọ police who how much boy chief justice enti catch say enye baby's wisdom na adopt here. You will not disclose some of these things in public because you know what to do. You can only tell the media say I'm on for a threaten me. My report to the police, and this is the update on it. If people are threatening you to resign from your position, and your media say, a criminal issue, and I will sympathize with you, go and report to the CID and any of the investigative bodies for them to take the issue up.
That's right.
So you don't come and add it up and make it look like Obina threatening. And again, I say, Kwanya President Mahamadu Bawumia establish a premier fast no omo Gyamfi anyway. And I make a say me too amount for say wunya to me a yeah, people should come down from the high horses. Na yamaya dwen enya adwuma. Alaska, matena ha ka kira a lot say your 1992 constitution, you know. Outliving the usefulness. There are several portions of it. And any linkage to maybe a caught in there. We are saying so it is important we look at those essential aspects na ye amend it. Alaska yatina kroma me catch it say you can say you establish a premier facia in a case you submit akwa president. The constitution, you know, any procedural arrangement be or the say.
That's right.
We move from A, we move to B, we move to C. Yes, people can speak to a judicial president, but judicial president, you know, is not binding on another judge.
Okay.
They can only take inspiration or maybe take a cue from it, but it doesn't bind them.
As a reference.
As a reference. Yes, you can depart from the earlier ruling and set a new precedent. You understand? So, say Chief Justice say process na President Mahamadu Bawumia or the koyaya or the sign warrant man illegal. I'm saying illegal on what basis? Because Constitution said the President will receive a petition, forward same to Council of State. Council of State will delve deeper into the issue and report back to the President. This known process justice there come former Lamte Alaska. The process obia circumventing know the process and the Chief Justice in him say sa process no an error ne a time as a Chief Justice she could have caused that particular thing to be regularized in such a way say in establishing a premier facie we need to go through this procedural arrangement and sana yet Miaka say indeed there is credit, there is merit. She didn't do any of these things. Now what I didn't have two one then you are telling people say the president erred. I'm telling you say the president never erred anywhere because they laid down procedures now over the years that is what he did.
I see are politically motivated.
In what sense? In her twisted mind, that is what she thinks. Because at the end of the day, Alaska, I will send you the ruling. Supreme Court a ruling on her case,
Okay.
I've been posting episodes on it on Facebook. And I say, who read it? Your friends that the ruling now, it will be very interesting.
Wow.
The young judge for I can't say, the wishes now, I think say that is the law, no, that is not the law. On one, the young judges can't say, I am the personal wishes and emotions and feelings, and she cannot substitute that particular thing for the law.
Wow.
So the mere fact that we are judge and no doesn't mean say we wouldn't be our Alaska. That is why your panel.
That's what no mama no why you born into oma born na to her.
Alaska.
The question say wa na wo do ho aba. No, what I mean is that once we boom rasu for years.
Yeah, for sure.
So afena yedim rano.
And what she was doing, as to whether it's lawful or not, it clearly means that to them, no, it was unlawful.
Exactly.
So it's now time for her to face what is the law.
Exactly.
And that is what they are doing.
Good. So, and I'll be a catcher say, when you to me now, baby, treat nipa well.
That's right.
Because accept to you will need nipa never can be amount. The press conference, just try to help public sentiment, you know.
That's right.
Alaska, why na who's a what's your all come on and the MPP no more Babo no more defend the chief justice and no more baby.
Because
the people defend you have no credibility. And then John Mahama, what's me and Emfa? Do you know why? The gentleman was president, was assaulted, was everything was done to him. He comes back to become president. This time, there is a lot of goodwill on his side.
Exactly.
Things are going positively for him. Yeah. And for you to turn the tide against him, you need to have a substantial tenor. And you know, so I bet him that convince Ghana for say, Papa, I dear in the Pabon, Sam, and Ghana way, you should come to my aid. Wouldn't to meeting if you are Ghana for sorry, no Tatama Vodino. Exactly. So, sanity. So, you see, answer now ride against the tide, it means that you have something substantial. But to the average Ghanaian now, friend, Alaska, Ghana need that say birth certificate and your primary document and passport.
That's right.
Average Ghanaian Makola woman to me who said Sao really no Sabinyan Sabi and it was coming from the Supreme Court. And you want them to respect you. And the Obiti baby no say we need to reset the judiciary. Ghana will fall for that particular thing.
For sure. I mean, Ghana Nina, we see Ghana card never qualify for way and or your foreigner, or then over to your aid. And a foreigner.
Alaska.
Yes, sir.
Ghana for Uncle Law School, the Ghana Uncle Law School da. Supreme Court the ruling ba. Now what Tanasaka said, this is absolute rubbish.
That's right.
Because Nyansa from the Supreme Court or not even lower court. And that person ni dream ni say yebe making sure say yes sanitize the judiciary na a look better na a serve purpose. You think that Ghana will come to your aid when you have nothing sensible to say? Alaska, Ghana for are sick and tired of some of these trash and some no can obetimi akai me bianca be me de unze dawson
yebesa kwa ba
enti nsam na obroso no makacho say it was a politically staged, emotionally driven kind of attention shopping stunt and all yeah. But unfortunately for her, no, emfa. Come I can't say we public office tena. Now we have just say we mundi pa we 2 minutes bedim cross sem asora tena nipa so ayo ho sabi oso ageman ebi mada Alaska emre bi beduru obeya mobo and that is exactly what she's going through.
Over two bread food.
Asam na all can say free say Ghana yes set your constitution chief justice bi anu ha subject to na Alaska nti
there's always first in first.
Na Alaska the mere fact say yenye obi dan doesn't mean say ntimi mfa nyawo. And some na mrantia no kano ewo nyina so and na some ba kon san kan say dan ofori issue na omode ne call court no ye nyina ye judges ne akotena se ne adi asem ntia ba ne say na judicial ruling no they have this way abom judicial immunity from ruling and identity asem akotena so wadi no obi betimi agina sa asem no so and the actual petition Alaska let me answer that particular thing. She's lying because yakasa judicial ruling and our judicial proceedings are terminate the very moment a ruling is read in court.
Okay.
On it your friends police in the issue no. The ruling was read and that ended the matter. Yeah. The gentleman was about leaving the courtroom. And this okay ruling over can't say after the proceedings no one no off record comment. So off record comments now cannot be captured to be part of a judicial ruling proceedings. I need to enjoy immunity. I don't know whether you get a point.
That's right.
Because proceeding no more ruling what buano for and I will can't man for say or you're incompetent. Now some no as a lawyer no he's supposed to know better. Yes, that cannot be part of a judicial process. I didn't you think you enjoy immunity. And Alaska, Chief Justice is a liar. Oh yes.
Oh, why are you calling
him? I'm telling you, sir, or lack integrity, and she cannot be Chief Justice. Now, no, some now original so not all cannot. The biggest of it all, they say, how can you ask me to come and appear before a committee and I don't know my charges?
That's right.
And the petitioner no reading no. Na Quran.
Because
I'm asking you, petitioner na otchere mu no na Quran.
How did she get it?
Alaska, na Quran.
A petition.
Na there na otchere letter come out President Mahama o man a copy or respond you know and also na Bible
Akoto FM
o say onim adientia committee na trans issue na ye di no onim ho hwe Ghana for mumra John Mahama say yentumi
a film version of Untumi.
Yeah, for sure.
You see
For sure.
We saw a comic version of the Chief Justice. Yeah. That's what I'm saying, sir. That person or lack candor or lack integrity, and you can never trust her. Because beginning, I want actual letter come out president say on my copy. And at that time I told you, sir, president shouldn't have given her a copy.
Yes,
because constitution, you know, and making allowance for that. You wait till we set up a committee and say. But now, woman no catch it. Be say only copy of Nema Ekoso. And the Ghana force should come to her aid. I didn't say you didn't some not charges against her and only when in the past you are more a copy of the petition. You've responded to the petition, and you are even discussing the content of the petition against the law of the land. Today you are telling people say you don't know content of the petition. Can you trust that person?
No. Thanks for watching. Like and share the video. You can also drop your comment. Please don't forget to subscribe. Click on the bell to turn on the notification.